I now call the meeting to order for the Rutherford County School System for Thursday, June 13th, work session. We now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Katie Darby.
I am going to ask Mr. Butch Vaughn to lead us in the pledge.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now have a moment of silence. Thank you. Direct everyone's attention to the agenda. Do we have any questions, comments, anything that needs to be moved or changed? You got something? Dr. Sullivan?
Just real quick, the reason this agenda is so short, we just met a week ago, and we have to move this meeting up a week, basically in order to meet the county commission's deadline for their meetings. For us to do budget amendments, it's the end of our year cleanup amendments. So just thinking about today's June 13th, and basically we stop all purchases for a $500 million corporation 3 weeks before it ends. So when you think about us still operating, it's definitely different to stop operations June 13th when your fiscal year doesn't end until June 30th and you still have summer school going on and all those different types of things. But County Commission is approving, hopefully, our summer school amendment that we put in May tonight. That's where Dr. Martin is. If this is approved on Monday night, then there's a health and education meeting Tuesday night at 5. Then there's a budget meeting directly right after that to go to the full commission on June 24th. If we have some weird avenue, and I cannot imagine this would as many times as Brian and I have looked at it, but I don't want to fall into the same thing we had. We have another payroll that hits June 20th, and if something happens that a payroll line goes over, then we will let you all know and maybe call an emergency meeting to pass like yesterday, I'll tell you what, Brian and I looked at one of them. One line was going to be, was it 7 cents short? How many cents short was it going to be? 40 cents short, and a multi-million-dollar line, so we added $10 to that line to make sure it was covered instead of 40 cents. So,
Like an overdraft.
yeah, I don't envision that happening, but just in case, that's the reason for the weird schedule.
Okay, so if you need to, we'll call a very, very quick special called meeting that just takes care of that, and we'll move on. All right, anyone else have something about the regular agenda? I direct your attention to the consent agenda. And this will take you a moment to flip through if you haven't already. Any questions about the consent agenda? It's pretty long. No questions? Comments? Anything need moving? We will move on. Number 6, public comment, will be Monday, and number 7, Rutherford Proud, will be Monday. So we will move to number 8, instruction. Dr. Sullivan?
We talked about this a little bit during the budget cycle. We currently use Skyward as our student information system. We are looking to move towards Synergy for the 25-26 school year. So that's not this coming school year, but implementation does take about half a year at the least. Following a competitive process that include multiple groups of stakeholders and product demonstrations, curriculum instructions requesting board approval for a move to Synergy SIS as the Rutherford County School Student Information System, with implementation beginning in the 24-25 school year for full use beginning in 25-26. Synergy platform provides the level of data and process management that's required for RCS moving forward in the areas of usability, productivity, accuracy, and efficiency. You'll see the first year cost is $108,875. That increases every year. For example, right now Skyward's $270,000. We basically pay per kid that we have. So however many, as we continue to grow, that price always increases. And this is what all of our data moves into the state system, the EIS system, which provides every penny that we get as far as state funding.
Yes, ma'am?
I was going to ask, is this something that our parents are going to have to get used to? How user-friendly is this?
So much more.
Oh, so much more. Very good, very good.
Dr.
Good.
Sullivan?
Yeah.
Do we have a plan of how we're going to communicate this to parents? Because you're going to have, these accounts have to be recreated by the parents, and so that communication needs to be really spelled out for them.
We do. We do this, unfortunately, about every 5 years.
Okay, perfect.
We had, was it iNow before that? Does that sound right? Yeah. iNow, then Skyward, then, I can't remember. About every 4 or 5 years, the state does a new RFP, and so that's what
Okay, great.
we will.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am?
can we print report cards from it?
Does all the things, even better. Anyone else?
I'll say what I'm most excited
Yes,
about is
sir.
to be able to pull up a dashboard and see how many true kids we have in each demographic at one time, instead of having to wait and run a report and run a query for it to then get in line to tell me how many kids are in there, so.
And since we're
This will
talking
be
about budget, this is able to, it consolidates a lot of other programs that we're having to currently purchase separately. So it will ultimately save us money because it does so much more. So we are very excited about this. And this is Ms. Atwood. She is our Director of Student Information, just if you have questions for her afterwards about synergy or any of the things.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Number 2.
Additional laptops for Laverne Lake Elementary. Laverne Lake Elementary is requesting to purchase 166 additional Dell 3140 laptops. The laptops will be used by students for online projects, personalized learning lessons, and assessments. The cost of these laptops will not exceed $54,500 and be funded through 24-25 Title I.
That's right. Go ahead. I bet they were excited.
They didn't want to have to do it, thank you, do without them. So
Right.
I think this is going to be.
I think that's great. Anyone else? Okay.
Something we're running into that I'm sure they talked about, Ms. Sharp, was that our Windows 10 devices are no longer going to be supported after this coming year, and so we're struggling with them, so.
Windows
That's the
10 will no
elementary,
longer
yes,
be.
it's elementary.
That's elementary.
Yep.
Okay. Transportation.
This was postponed from last meeting. Board activity bus camera system installation request, purchase of the gatekeeper camera systems like the system utilized on contractor buses at a cost of $208,440.52 for all 70 RCS activity buses. I'd like to add just to that, I know it's not in the motion, but I'll change that for Monday. We would fund this out of fund balance beginning in July. Either way, it has to go to the county commission for approval. So I'd rather just not have a encumbered PO sitting out there that covers two, because there's no way we would get these done by July 1st.
And Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am?
Dr. Sullivan, just to clarify, that is so that it puts it in the 24-25 budget,
Correct.
correct?
Yep.
Anyone else? Number 10, financial matters.
So you have another larger document, and so we've talked about this a little bit. We received quite a bit of TISA funding in growth funding and then direct outcome funding that we get throughout the year, and then we don't budget that funding till we see what lines actually need it. This year, in cleanup amendment budgets, $8,158,644 for items such as leave payouts, increases for degree and certification pay scale changes, hard-to-staff bonuses and stipends, increased premium increases for insurance, adjustments for amended ISM program, additional costs for contracted services and capital outlay for construction, funding for these expenses to come from additional TISA revenue for outcome and fast growth funding collected above budgeted amount, and moving current budgeted expenditures between multiple accounts and within object codes. So Brian and I have looked at this more than I ever care to look at this budget again. And the other things I will add to that is if you look at the top is revenue. That's why if you see 46,510, and I'm looking at the other staple portion, That's where you see the additional 8 million that is being increased here. What you do not see is we know that property tax is above that collection. We know that income investment is above that. Those are funds that the county actually controls, and we don't get the additional funds that they collect. It just rolls into whatever fund balance.
Those are the MOE, so we cannot adjust the MOE funds.
Yep. We would love to adjust it because we know that investment income, for example, I think it's budgeted at 1.2, is that right? Yes, and we have collected, is it over 4 at this point? I think it's over 4.
I believe that's what Michael told me last time I spoke with him.
And so because it's connected to maintenance of effort, we're not allowed to increase. That would increase maintenance of effort. So those extra funds will go into fund balance, which gives the reason for the other item we just talked about beforehand.
All right.
Ms.
Anyone
Bratton?
else? Mr. Tidwell.
So what was the total for the outcome fast growth above the budgeted?
It was that $8.1 million.
Oh, so it's funded.
But if you look, the one thing that you want to look at, you don't see it on yours because I calculated it behind the scenes. There's about $8.2 million worth of medical insurance that's in there. So that's that part of that. You don't see that part. You can see it in the amendments, but whenever you calculate the increase and decreases, there's about $8.2 million worth of medical insurance that we approved that the board took on. So
Anyone else?
I'll have one more thing.
Yes,
We
sir.
won't get our official how much was fast growth and everything till July, so this may still change a little bit, and I know that's after the fiscal year actually ends, which is frustrating. So that's why we like to leave a little bit of wiggle room here. I think we have about 600,000 extra that we don't have assigned anywhere, just in case some of those funds change.
Dr. Sullivan, didn't we lose $3 million from fast?
We did, yes. We did, because of the reallocation. They reallocated basically the Medicare portion that we have talked about that we received quite a bit of funding in January for because of free and reduced lunch numbers increasing. And then the state changed what was coded for free and reduced lunch, and Medicare, Medicaid no longer counted the direct serve. And that reallocation dropped us from 7.8 to 4.1. So that's right. So it was a little bit, it was over 3 million.
And that also is going to impact the economically disadvantaged portion of TISA.
We were 4,000 students above that.
Yeah.
So it would have been a multi-million-dollar increase.
Anyone else? Ms. Sharp?
Kind of a sidebar, Dr. Sullivan, in with the health, did I hear that we don't have to have permission from the parents to now charge for those services in the school?
For what services?
Free and reduced?
No, what did you mention?
Was it the Medicare stuff?
Medicare,
The
yes,
nurses had to
Medicare.
get
Oh,
signatures
no, I'll
or
have to
something?
talk to our
Is that,
Red School Health.
was that not one of the things that was holding us up on some of the funding, getting some of the funding, is that we had to ask permission from the parents, and the parents were not signing off on some of the treatment that they were getting?
I remember us talking about that, but I'll follow up because I don't remember off the top of my head last year.
I had
Yep.
heard now, I'd heard somewhere that we no longer had to have permission for that, so, I don't know, worth looking.
For
into.
reimbursement, right? Yep.
Worth looking into.
Good. Anyone else? Yeah, I remember the conversation, I just didn't know what had come of it. And you've heard that that may not be true. That would be good. Okay, thank you. Number 2, Fund 143.
Fund 143, this fund is Fund 143, Centralized Cafeteria Year-End Cleanup Amendment, budgets funds for expenditures such as food supplies and materials and the transportation of those items. This amendment moves money from into multiple line items without increasing or decreasing revenues and expenditures. This allows several line items to have money amended into them so they will not be over budget at year-end.
Questions on Centralized Cafeteria Fund?
And it's towards the back, they're all stapled together, second to
Okay.
last page.
Number 3, Fund 177.
This Fund 177 Capital Projects Year-End Cleanup Amendment budgets funds for expenditures from maintenance and repair services for projects that occurred during fiscal year 23-24. This amendment moves money from multiple line items to Object Code 355 without increasing or decreasing revenues and expenditures. This allows several line items to have money amended into them, so they will not be over budget at year end. That's the very last page.
Very last.
It's about 86,000, I think, that moves around.
Questions? Comments? Number 2, engineering and construction.
This is Siegel High School's greenhouse CTE project request. Rutherford County Schools Career and Technical Education Departments proposing the construction of one 20 by 45 greenhouse to be purchased from Morton's Horticultural Products in McMinnville, Tennessee for the Siegel High Ag Education Program. The RCS CTE department will be paying for the purchase of the greenhouse site work, greenhouse installation, and utility installation, as well as any necessary permits, plans, and/or fees. This project will be funded through the Tennessee Innovative Schools Models Grant and at no cost to the board.
Questions about the greenhouse? Thank you. I'm going to break my record, y'all know that.
That'd be great.
No, I'm not. No, he's got a big mouth over here. Insurance.
No additional updates from last week.
Only thing that I'll add to insurance is that we're going to meet with Gallagher and then look to set up our insurance committee. As Mr. Runyon talked about, we're close, if not over 60 million of what we put towards medical insurance. So we were looking at 9% last year. It actually came out to closer to 11%, and that's just not sustainable for us whatsoever. It basically, the medical insurance took just about every penny that we had of fast growth and direct outcome funding. So we're going to meet with him the second week, I believe, in 2 weeks, right? 20th, 25th, I can't remember. 26th.
Okay. We don't know how much things are increasing yet at the state, do we?
So I spoke with Gallagher, the representative, today, and we know an aggregate of 5.9% over the overall. Supposedly, from the conversation that I had with him today, there is expectations of the state releasing the actual amounts among the tiers of insurance programs next week.
Okay.
So that's what we're hoping for, but I can't guarantee it, so.
That will help, though. Okay. Anyone else? Financial report? Right here.
It's right here.
There you go. Director's update?
Dr. Chastain, do you want to talk anything about scores when they see scores that are published, that includes all students and not students that wouldn't necessarily be held accountable for? Because I know there's a big, we can't share anything specifically, but I know the state's doing a big push today.
The push from the state today was mostly for 3rd and 4th grade, so we don't have the final file, but don't expect really any changes from what we've communicated already to you all. We've been spending a lot of time in the last 2 days with the data that's been released, just raw scores that have been released for all of our other tested subjects. So we're working with principals right now on kind of who gets included, who doesn't. We've talked about newcomers quite a bit. We have different claiming processes that happen. So yeah, all that should be embargoed for several more weeks, but 2 more weeks? 2 exactly. This is why we keep her around. She's very good at these deadlines. Yeah, so I think by the time we release it to the board and publicly, it'll be mostly cleaned up, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'll settle that. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Ms. Barton.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Chastain, so the law changed this year for 3rd grade and 4th grade, and we were able to process the appeals on behalf of our parents. How did that go? How many appeals do we have? How, are we running into issues? I know last year was very nightmarish. I think I made up a word, but you like it? Thank you. But I know there was a lot of challenges last year.
It's a smoother process for us this year. You know, the second year is a little easier. A lot of that communication had been done. Us being able to file the appeals certainly was helpful. There was a little bit of a tweak in the law where there was a limited number of options that students had once they filed an appeal. So there's been a little confusion there where parents used to have the option to file the appeal and then attend summer camp or attend tutoring. It's a little harder to communicate this year because they have to meet that adequate growth in summer camp for the tutoring or for the summer camp to count. So it's not a sure thing. So that's been a little iffy to work through, but other than that, it's going well. The appeals that we are submitting are being granted because the rules are cleaner and clearer. There have been a few errors from the state side, but they've cleaned them up pretty quickly. Yours, 139 have been approved so far.
Oh, wow.
The only other ones we're waiting on now are for the fourth graders, so we're waiting on those projections. You remember talking about adequate growth and that we had to wait until July to get the projections to know where those fourth graders stood. So that's really the only big piece we're waiting on for the third, fourth grade retention.
So is the formula still, in your opinion, arbitrary? Like it feels like it's arbitrary?
My opinions on the formula have not changed.
Okay.
But I am happy to report that our fourth graders did really well. So there were several on that list that were at risk of retention that we don't even have to wait on adequate growth because they've already hit proficiency. So I feel like we're doing great things. Our teachers have worked extremely hard. We keep meeting the bar as it is moved. So again, we're going to work through it, but the formula still doesn't feel quite right.
Great. And the test link didn't break like it did last year, where you had to figure out a run, like a round.
Yeah.
And around.
Well, and remember, thanks to actions of the board and our legislators, we didn't have to give that pretest to those third graders this year. So that's where a lot of that happened that caused the most angst. So that was nice to not have to include that. Ms. Davis is still working through attendance and all those issues that come with the territory, but was able to walk through summer camps yesterday at several sites. It's amazing what that is a good thing. So the funding that goes to summer camps, that is a very, very good thing.
So we have to thank our Representative Stevens for really championing that, because he really fought for that piece to be passed, because there was a bit of a hurdles that he faced in trying to get that test being removed. And that was a result of a meeting that I requested and worked with the delegation, and on behalf of our school board members, we got together and purposely to talk about the hardships and the issues that we encountered with the third grade law, the implementation of the third grade law last year. And I also want to thank your team, Dr. Chastain, and Elizabeth, who's not here, because she really was able to speak into a lot of those issues. And I don't know if the board realizes or not, but she stayed up and worked that whole entire weekend to support the families and our teachers and our principals. And that was however many schools we have in the on the elementary side for third grade. She was the go-to person for us and the go-to person for the state side. So we need to give her kudos for helping us in getting something changed, and it was a result of us communicating to our delegation. So thank you, Representative Stevens, if you're listening.
Thank you for saying that about the team, because that's very true.
And the team, absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Rosales, do you have anything? Are you going to, if you have anything?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
And number 17, general discussion. I would like, yes, sir?
I'll be glad to wait till the
Okay.
board's finished, but I
Just
do
let me
have something. I
announce
need to
this,
bring.
and then I'll let you jump right in. We will be evaluated again on Monday night. Karen Dodd, who was going to come with Barbara Long, got sick, and so she said, can I please still come? And of course, we said that would be just fine. This will be, again, from Murfreesboro City. Karen Dodd is a teacher for us at the virtual school. She is I'm going to tell, level 5, wonderful math teacher, and so she's looking forward to coming on Monday night. So welcome her when she comes. And I evaluated Murfreesboro City Board this week, and that was a lot of fun. It was fun. They apologized because they had to do, they went through all their policies. So, I was like, but it was great. They had a very good meeting. We got our evaluation from Barbara Long, and we had a very high evaluation. She said many many nice things about us, and Murfreesboro City followed up, and they had a very high evaluation also. So we'll see Karen on Monday night. Yes, sir.
Last few weeks, the board's approved a number of projects for our CTE programs. A lot of these projects are not large projects from a cost standpoint, but they're going to become that way. Most all of these projects are in the city limits of Murfreesboro. I'm not here to bash the city. I've been having conversations with our design teams, and we're getting initial responses from the city on what they're going to be expecting from design standpoints. It's going to add quite a bit of cost. I'm meeting first of the week with the CTE programs to find out some additional information on how we can help them. But there's a real possibility that some of these projects may be lost due to fees that we're going to have to pay through the city. So if that comes back, I just wanted you all to be aware that it's getting fairly extensive. For very small barns, for a small greenhouse, these types of things, the city's still wanting us to go through like it's a $50 million building, when most of them are fairly small. So just letting you know, because if some of these projects get lost, I may be back amending something that we've approved for something else that CTE is wanting to utilize those funds for at those particular schools.
Thank you.
Just
Yes,
a
sir.
heads up on some issues that we're running into.
Dr. Sullivan?
I'd also add 814 South Church Street. I hinted at it maybe a month ago. It's running into the same rules. I don't see a way it opens next school year at all. We need to do a traffic study, all kinds of other things now for a school to hold 60 kids.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is that for, Mr. Lee, is that for the greenhouses?
Yes, ma'am.
Mainly the greenhouses? That's where the holdup is on the greenhouses? That are,
One of the projects is the renovation of the additional building at Central Magnet. We call it the old furnace building, which is what it was. It's been a storage building for years. But one of the CTE projects is to renovate the inside and turn it into 2 classrooms. We're going to pretty much leave the outside alone, but it's going to have to go through the Historical Zoning Commission, which adds increase to the architects. I thought I had a current enough survey from when we did the last parking lot at Central Magnet, but that survey did not get enough information about that building. So there's, surveys anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000, depending on, how extensive we have to go. But these things add cost, and they ramp up fairly quickly.
how long do you anticipate it to take for a road study?
How long?
How long for the road study? Do you just?
Oh, for the 814, it could take 2 to 3 months just our part of the study, and then to determine what the city's going to ask in return.
Wow.
Anyone else? Mr. Tidwell?
Could you get us the cost of, an approximation of what those costs are going to be that the city's asking us for these CTE programs? The additional fees and stuff that we probably expected not to have to pay for greenhouses and such?
Yes.
You can get that to us.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lee, are they not considered agricultural greenhouses, so they should be exempt?
Well, we're still dealing with the barn at Oakland High School that's an agricultural.
I thought all that was exempt.
Used to be. Not anymore.
Mr. Tidwell?
There's an election going on right now, guys.
Yep, I'm writing some names down. They're getting some calls.
Mr. Tidwell?
Dr. Chastain, is the funding or the application for the Tennessee Innovative School Models, there ain't no going back to see if we can clean up or ask for more or anything?
We have,
Exhausted?
we cannot ask for more, and those projects really were, if we cannot go over. And so that's what's been communicated with Trey and his team, is that like, this is what we have for Central's STEM building. We cannot go over, so if we're gonna go over, we're gonna have to back up and adjust the entire project and grant to do something totally different for each of those areas or those projects in general. So we've exhausted all the money that is allocated.
Thank you.
And
Dr.
you have to
Sullivan?
pay it, in those funds have to be used up by a certain date, too.
And we have through the summer of 2026, so we certainly have the ability to go back and make adjustments through the state, through that process, but it's just, the schools have committed resources of their own to planning for what that may look like down the road, whether it's teachers or kind of in their plans, their school plans. And the Central one is the one that keeps coming to mind. I mean, that one was going to be a little tight to start with, and we were already making some concessions, and those fees will kill the project.
And we've worked through a lot of this. In the past, we were able to do our own drawings, and we did them in-house and turned things in and got permits, and we're no longer allowed to do that, even with the state fire marshal's office. Now, if I want to cut in a door to a classroom, used to, we could do our own drawings, submit it to the state, submit it to the city. We'd get the local folks to come by and look at it, make sure they were okay with it, and we'd go about our business. Now we have to pay an architect to do a drawing that we can do, stamp it, and go through the processes, and it's anywhere from they charge us by the hour, but by the time they submit to the state and go through all the paperwork, it's very easily on something like cutting in a door that they could have 10 to 15 hours at $250 to $350 an hour. So it's kind of spinning. I don't want to use the term silliness because I'm not being disrespectful. But it's gotten out of hand, and it's costing us funds that could be spent on the kids and for programs now are being reduced so that we can pay architects and engineers to do a lot of the things that we used to be able to do.
Anyone else? Yes. Mr. Tidwell, do you have another question?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to follow up with that. It just sounds like everybody wants to take a piece of the pie on every single aspect of modification.
And we do, and we've historically worked with CT, and I say we, the maintenance department and my project managers. I mean, if we can draw something, we've done things like the CTE program would buy the materials, say for electrical changes that they needed. They would buy the materials and our electricians would do the work. With permits, you have to have a licensed contractor. Now, our department does hold a license, but we have to apply for a permit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be flippant, but some of these projects, I get 3 or 4 permits at $500 a piece. They're knocked out, or they're trying to figure out what else they can remove from the project and still get it. And we did. I mean, the CTE program and I met numerous times. We did budgets for some architectural fees, some things that we thought we would do that, we felt like were nominal, but those numbers keep escalating because the amount of work that we're having to do to satisfy the permits is escalating.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dr. Sullivan, or Tralee, what's the status of the virtual school opening in Holloway? Are we on track for it to start this new school year?
No problem.
Great. I bet they're excited.
They are. Anyone else?
I have just something.
Yes, ma'am.
Going on a different field. Several of you all know that I have, for the last 5 years, had a camp for high school age, structured setting, current students of ours. And this summer, it's going to be held July 8th through the 12th. I still have some spots available. I can take up to 30. We're around 20, so I could take about 10 more kids. And it's from July 8th to the 12th, from 8:30 to 2. Cost is $50 for the week, but if that's an issue, we can take care of that as well. I would like for you to contact me if you want your son to attend or your daughter to attend, Claire Maxwell at bellsouth.net, or call me at 615-351-2262. I'm looking forward to I'd like to have 30 if we can. We've always had around 20 to 25, and our numbers are a little low right now, but we're going to be at Siegel High School, and I'm looking forward to having it. It's going to be a great week.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Darby?
Move to adjourn.
Ms. Mack?
Second.
We are adjourned.
I would like to do